I am open. here as in heaven for me, please. That face is surprising me. Hey, can you turn on the air? Make sure the air turn for me, please. Because the sun over here is burning me up.
It's a little warm.
The atmosphere is changing now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. The Spirit of the Lord is here. The atmosphere is changing now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. Evidence is all around. The Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. The atmosphere is changing now. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. And the Spirit of the Lord is here. Come on, let's change our atmosphere. The atmosphere is changing now. Yes. For the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. That the Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Spirit of God, fall fresh on us. Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. We can feel your presence. The Spirit of the Lord is here. Miracles can happen. Overflow. The Spirit of the Lord is here. Ready for the overflow. Evidence is all around. The Spirit is here. The Spirit of the Lord is here. Overflow. Overflow in this place. Our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. Everybody say that. Overflow. Overflow in this place. Fill our hearts with your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Your love surrounds us. You're the reason we came to encounter your love. Thank you for your love. Surround us. You surround us, Lord. Your love surrounds You surround us with your love. Yes, you surround us with your love. It's your love. If you're hearing anything the Father is sharing, feel free to share it in this moment.
Father, in Jesus' name, I entrust my work to you this day, and I know my plans will work out well. I can do everything you ask me to do with the help of Christ, who gives me the strength and power. Because I reverence your name, your goodness shines on me like the sun, with healing in its rays. I praise you and never forget how kind you are to me. You forgive all my sins and heal all my sicknesses. You save me from the grave, and you surround me with loving kindness and tender mercies. I give myself completely to you as a living person, who has been raised from the dead, and I offer myself as a tool in your hands for your good purposes.
Thank you, Lord. Yes, amen. Hallelujah.
Thank you, Lord.
I heard the Lord say that He's
Right.
I heard the Lord saying that He's undoing the bands of wickedness.
Undoing the bands of wickedness.
Glory to God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Anybody else? Corinthians chapter 13 verse 9 says, "For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away with. And when I was a child, I spake as a child, and I understood as a child, and I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things." Verse 12 says, "For now we see through a glass, darkly or dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known."
Yes.
I was talking to the Father this weekend. It just immediately took me to the place of just looking at my own image, looking at myself. You can stand, you can sit, you can do whatever you need to do.
There's some spots over here on the sofa too.
Some of us, whether it's ourselves, we know people that don't like to look at themselves in the mirror. I remember I was taking this is gonna sound like something you don't know, but so I was taking this martial arts class, and it was more like martial arts exercise. So I don't know any martial arts, so don't ask me to show off for you right now. Not in the presence of the Lord, but the instructor, he said he would wake up every morning and he would look in the mirror and he would make confessions over himself. He said, "You are this, you are awesome, you are great, and you're gonna do great things." I thought, yeah, that sounds weird, but that's great. That's because I wasn't doing that at the time.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated what he said. And so this week, it was, he kind of took me full circle and had me look in the mirror. Everybody knows what you look like. Some of us, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't really appreciate what we see. Some of us look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't really, you don't really want to look at yourself in the mirror because of the things that have gone on in that image. And so I want to share with you, not my words, but his words, because they sound a whole lot better than mine. Is that all right? Glad everybody's here this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and start at the top, because Isaiah 11, 1 through 3 talks about the 7 spirits of God. Some people don't realize that that God has 7 spirits. But many times we focus on one attribute of the Spirit. But he said there are 7 spirits. If you want to follow along in the app, it is the Presence-Driven app. You can see the notes there, or if you can look up scripture, you can do that too. Proverbs 23:7 says, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." what you understand becomes the frame around your life. The Father began to talk to me about the understanding and how we frame our lives through what we understand about ourselves. Sometimes when we look in the mirror, many times when we look in the mirror, Jill was putting on her face this morning. She said she had to put her face on it. I didn't have my face on either. I still don't. And because you look in the mirror and you start understanding that certain things are out of place, and so then you start, shaving. You start, fixing this and you fixing that. And he was showing me that is understanding. That is where you begin to look at yourself and you begin to make the necessary, what you think, changes to just how you look. Whether your eyebrows need trim, whether your lips need lipstick, women, or whether you need this to be, I want to bring my eyes out, or I want to make this a little more hidden, or I don't like how this feels up under here, or I want to hide that with a little bit of something, or so you begin. That is he showed me that is understanding, which I never looked at understanding that way, but it isn't about the word, it's about the word, the meaning and the picture of it. You can only know based on your understanding. You can only know based on your understanding. Your knowing is rooted in what you understand. Whereas a child, you don't seek understanding. You just seek experience. You don't seek understanding, you seek experience. You forsake understanding because it requires another facility in your soul. You would rather experience instead of understand. This is as a child. You'd rather experience than to understand. We have new additions running around here in our family, and they aren't trying to understand where they are. They aren't trying to understand why they are. They aren't trying to understand any of that. They're just trying to experience the house. They're trying to experience the moment. They're only concerned about that moment. They're not concerned about the if and what, none of that. After a number of mistakes, you're supposed to have a natural tendency to ask or to seek after the why, and why you might keep getting burned, or why you might keep getting hurt. My mom used to tell me, don't touch the stove. And I didn't understand it until I experienced it. And then when I experienced it, I had an understanding. And the why helps to present the need for understanding. There's a natural understanding of natural things, and there's a spiritual understanding of spiritual things that happen to pertain to you. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11 in the Amplified says, For what person perceives or knows and understands what passes through a man's thoughts, except the man's own spirit within him? Just so no one discerns or comes to know and comprehend the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. For what person perceives, knows, understands what passes through a man's thoughts except the man's own spirit within him? Just so no one discerns and comes to know and comprehend the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. He began to say, we know because we understand. We understand because we have experienced and become knowledgeable based on self, or a person, or the person on edge outside that experienced something and became aware through understanding, and then you gain knowledge. So we don't have understanding always until we experience it. That's the way I was hearing it. We have two choices: to get to know the flesh by the flesh, or to get to know the spirit by the spirit. Two choices: either to know the flesh by the flesh, or to know the spirit by the spirit. Moving past natural understanding, we begin to have the need for higher understanding. For higher understanding. Not just how things work, but why our lives are the way they are. Why we are sick, or why we are infirmed, or how we can become better, or why we are here on the earth, or what is our real purpose or calling. These wise seek answers based on this word, understanding. So where does understanding come from? 1 Corinthians chapter 13 says, when I was a child, I used to speak like a child, think like a child, reason like a child. When I became a man, I put away the childish things. Hebrews 5:13, you're familiar with it. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. He said, as a child, you speak as a child, which is void of understanding, void of what that understanding is milk. You don't understand where the milk or food is coming from. You just want to experience it. Real milk, real food, you just want to experience it. Doesn't matter where it comes from. You just want to experience it. But as a man, you need meat to grow. Meat. And this requires understanding of natural and spiritual things so you can obtain what you need to grow. And if that means hunting, finding meat, then you understand you need to know more to experience what you desire. I'm going to keep going because I have something to say. John 10:10 says the thief comes to steal, not but to steal, to kill, destroy, right? But I come to give. I come to give and to give life that more abundantly. This is experience. What you experience is guided through understanding, whether it's your understanding or someone else's understanding. You don't change your experiences first, but instead you change your understanding first, and that will change your experiences. You don't change your experiences first, but instead change your understanding first. And this will change your experiences. Remember we read 1 Corinthians chapter 9 that we know in part, see in part. That's going to go away because we're looking through a glass dimly. We're looking through the glass darkly, but then face to face. And now I know in part, but then shall I know even as I am known, which is he knows me and I will know him as he knows me. So as I went through this with my head like, and my hands like this on my head. I was like, what in the world are you talking about, Father? Because I look at understanding, I've looked at understanding differently. And there's natural understanding and there's spiritual understanding. And he's trying to show the difference between the two types of understanding, because we lean so much to our own understanding. And he wants us to lean towards his understanding, which is actually the spirit of understanding. If you look at Isaiah, somebody find Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1 through 3, and read that for me. I must not have.
Chapter 11, you said? 1 through 3? Okay. A shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of the knowledge and fear of the Lord. And he will delight in the fear of the Lord.
So those are the 7 spirits of God. And in that we heard that we have the spirit of wisdom and the spirit of understanding. We're talking about the spirit of understanding. The first part that I just went over is actually the second part that he gave to me. And so I want to read to you the word that I received this week concerning understanding, because it is meant to put our lives on a certain trajectory, and not to keep looking at ourselves in a mirror wondering what's next, wondering why.
Yes.
But instead to understand through the spirit of understanding. There's absolutely no reason why we should be living a life where we don't know what is going to happen. That we become surprised by the things that are happening. We should be living a life based on the spirit of wisdom and understanding in relationship with us, so that we know what God is wanting, asking, doing, and it's not a secret. He wants us to understand. It's not a secret. He wants us to perceive. He wants us to know his thoughts. He wants us to know his ways. It's not something that's supposed to be hidden. It's something that we seek the spirit of understanding to understand. And so the first thing he said was look into a mirror. And so I had my phone, which is being used right now. I had my phone. I just looked at myself and saw the picture of myself. And in all of that, as we talked about putting on makeup, what you do to make yourself this, that, or another, that's how we begin to understand, how we begin to bring things to light. He says, looking into a mirror, I am says, do not accept the image in front of you. If you need to look into your phone and see that image, do so. But he says, do not accept the image that is in front of you, and do not devalue the potential on the inside of the image that is in front of you. Don't devalue the potential, which is the power of the image that is in front of you. He says there's a three-part image in front of you. The two parts are, there you see the body and the soul. You see the body and the soul. The one you don't see is the spirit, the potential, the power, the actual person. We're actually spirit beings in a body. Right? He says, I am in the midst of thee. I am in the middle. The facts are in front of you. When you look in the mirror, the facts are in front of you. But faith is in the middle.
Amen.
You don't see your faith, but it's there, waiting to be released. The reality is set before you, but I am speaks again and says, behind every fact is the potential or the power for change.
Yes.
And he is that change.
Amen.
He is that change.
Amen.
So allow I am to be free to cause his potential, my potential, and my power to advance in you. There is more to the image than what you see. There's more to you than what you see looking back at you when you look in the mirror every day.
Yes.
For though you see dimly, and soon you shall see and understand. You have to wrap your head around what he's talking about when he says understand. Understanding says it comes for your agreement. Understanding comes for your agreement. Whatever you understand becomes the potential and the power for agreement. Whatever you understand becomes the potential and the power for agreement. So don't move towards agreeing with your own self. Agree with the Father. Agree with I am, the great I am in your life, whose viewpoint is different than the image you see.
Amen.
So I begin to see some of us are sick. And you look at yourself and you see I'm sick. You see it because you know it. Because that's what the facts say.
Right.
That's what your life looks like. You see, with all of the things that are going on, these things are part of understanding. And we see ourselves, and if we agree with the image that we see, then we're agreeing with our self-will and not with his will.
Right. True.
Amen.
We have to make it's a dichotomy, because you're looking at yourself and you see what you see, but he's asking us to look at ourselves and to realize we see dimly. We don't know ourselves like we think we know, because he knows us better than we know ourselves. And that what we know is going to fade away, and we will know ourselves as we are known by him. That's a lot of knowing, and I hope you got it.
You can repeat it again.
No, I can't.
So good.
I can't repeat that one. He says, if you are curious as to the future of yourself, of the image that you see, ask potential. Ask I am. seek after my understanding, he says. The conclusion can be known well in advance for the life you see in this moment. The conclusion. He's the end and the beginning. If you want to know what your life is supposed to be like, ask the one that knows the end from the beginning.
Right.
I know this is simple, but that's the way the kingdom is. It's just that we have to apply it. And once we apply it, the simple things become good to us. So, agree with I am, the great I am in your life, whose viewpoint is different than the image you see. If you're curious, you want to know what your future, as to the future of yourself, you have to seek after understanding, the spirit of understanding. The conclusion can be known well in advance for the life you see in this moment. You don't have to have a wait and see mentality. Let's see what's going to happen. Well, we're going to wait and see. No. You can know the outcome now. You can know the future now. You can know the outcome. Know the end from the beginning. Know the end result. What will be produced as you come forth is the outcome. What will be produced as you come forth is the outcome. You know when you're putting on makeup, ladies, talk to you for a second. When you're putting on makeup, you already know what the outcome is going to be if you do certain things with this, that, and other that you wear. And so you know the future, but you're in a now moment, which is at this point, well, the image that you see is not the image that you're going to have. It is just the image that you have now. But there is an outcome once you begin to apply the certain things to your face, to the image, in order to get the outcome that you already saw in the future. And then you decide to present yourself to the public based on whether you're satisfied with the outcome.
That's it.
And so when we talk about knowing the future, this isn't, we're not talking about something difficult. We're talking about knowing, because we become known by the one that he knows us. So then we know ourselves better. So then he begins to show us what the outcome is.
But you have to go through the process too.
And that's why you put your makeup on.
Right.
We know the end from the beginning, know the end result. We know what will be produced as you come forth. That's the outcome. Know the outcome before you actually come out.
Amen. That's good.
I am says, I am in the middle, and I am is the outcome. If you look beyond the veil, if you look beyond what you see, and if you see further than your understanding, if you could see further than what you presently understand. The reason why we don't know is because our understanding then is just based on ourselves, which we're going to talk about, because we have to not have our own understanding, which is, if the Bible says in Proverbs, if you lean towards your own understanding, that means you're not leaning towards his understanding. If you're leaning towards our understanding, then we're only going to know what we talked about. We have two choices, which is we can either know ourselves by the flesh, or we can know who we are by the Spirit. When we make the choice to know ourselves by the flesh, then we lean towards our own understanding of what we think life is supposed to look like for that image. Or we lean toward his understanding, the spirit of understanding, and then we begin to determine what life is supposed to look like, because he shows it to us. And then we bring that picture back so that we can align ourselves with what he is showing us. Outcome is to know the end from the beginning. Understanding. Man's understanding is a limiter. Man's understanding is a limiter. It says this far, this much, and no more. Man's understanding is not a trigger. It doesn't set things off. Man's understanding does not thrust you forward, but it tells you why, and then it tells you the current state. It tells you when the current will settle. Man's understanding is limited. If you ask me who I think you are, what I think you're supposed to be doing, it's gonna be completely limited. And I can sit here and think about your past, think about your present, but I don't know your future. But He knows your future. And so if we only seek answers based on our understanding, then we limit ourselves because we don't know enough.
Right.
So we can't live based on what we see. We have to live beyond what we see. We've been talking about faith and faith and faith for the last month in every one of our meetings, talking about faith, the life of faith, because we have to live by faith, not by what we see. And so when I'm looking at the image, I'm not looking at the image to see what I see. I'm looking at the image to see if it lines up with what I understand. And what I understand has to be from the spirit of understanding.
Right.
Right.
You hearing me?
Oh, yeah.
Because too many times we look down on ourselves, we look sideways at ourselves, we look at ourselves in displeasure, we're not happy with our progress, we're not happy with how far we've come, we're still wondering what are we going to turn out to be like, what's going to happen in this situation, that situation, what about this, well I don't know what's going to happen on my job today, but I'm going to go in today. That is living in ourself, in our flesh. That is not kingdom living. Kingdom living is where we begin to understand based on the fact that I seek the Father. And the Father says, let me tell you who you are so you can understand. Let me show you who you are and not just what you see. And then I'm going to give you some understanding so you know how to approach your day. Because the way I approach my day should be based on my tomorrow.
That's a good word.
It should not be based on my now.
Right.
Right.
Unless I bring my tomorrow into my now so that I can go move into my tomorrow based on the revelation, my understanding of what my tomorrows are supposed to look like.
That's good.
You get this? Spiritual understanding will silence every storm. Spiritual understanding will silence every storm. When he said that to me, I was like, that is, okay, so yes, that's true. Because as soon as you understand, you know, this is, you figure it out. Man's understanding produces obstacles in the pathway of the image that begins to define the outcome of the image of who you are. Man's understanding produces obstacles. You gotta do this before you gotta wait, but don't. But when it produces obstacles, stops, no's, instead of yes, go, move forward. Man's understanding produces obstacles. As man's understanding enters into your picture, it squashes the power, the strength of the potential of the Father within you. Man's understanding squashes your potential. Man's understanding seeks to mount up and take flight in the life of the image. And understanding desires control and to hold the reins of the image. Understanding seeks the throne, the seat of authority in your life. Understanding comes for the image and brings its ideas of the end, of the future in. Understanding does. Man's understanding. Understanding is like money. The value is evident, but its use is based upon the connection to the image in the mirror. Just as how you use money determines an outcome. How you use money determines an outcome. So, how you use understanding determines the outcome of your life. Understanding is available to all of us. Some of us will walk out of this room and not understand. I want you to understand what he is saying so that you don't live your life in misunderstanding. He showed me framed images. The connector is self-made, self-willed understanding that comes from within your soul, the body of the image, the person negating the potential, the power, and the strength of the image. So then the connector is influenced from the outer ring around the image, the frame. Every picture, these pictures don't have frames. They don't have pictures with frames.
I don't have any pictures with frames.
We don't have no pictures with frames. So goes for reparation.
Our family picture has a ring around it.
And it's not in the room though. It's not in the room. So we'll use this right here. This picture has a frame. That frame is the brown thing. Don't send me a text. Don't send me a message about frames. That is our framed example for today. So, understanding is a frame. Okay? Understanding is the frame around your life. Understanding is the frame that is around your life. It can be positive or it can be negative. The outer frame, or the connector, does exactly what is defined as. It frames the image. Understanding frames the image. It frames your life. Where you and who you obtain the understanding from determines your framing. So don't lean towards your defiled understanding, because it will frame your image and limit the process and the potential for the Father that He has for you. So you don't frame yourself in your defiled understanding, which just simply is to say leaning towards your understanding. When you lean towards your understanding, you begin to frame your life based on your understanding. Please get this, because you don't know nothing, but yet you're trying to figure life out, and you still keep framing your life around your own,
Good teaching.
your own stuff,
Good teaching.
your own thing,
Yeah, absolutely right.
your own way, your own thoughts, your own picture. And He's trying to set us free from our own understanding, so that we have the example to understand that we have to lean the other way.
Right.
And when we do lean the other way, we begin to understand the Spirit. And the Spirit tells us all things.
Yes.
Don't lean towards your defiled understanding, because it will frame your image. It also says your understanding must come from the outside of the image and not the inside of the image. Then your life, your image will be framed with limitless strength and potential, which determines the outcome before you have come into your own. The difference between the outcome and coming into your own. You ever heard this statement of it? When he comes into his own,
Oh yeah.
when he comes into his own thing, it's like, then we can know the outcome before we come into our own.
Yeah.
Because we allow ourselves to be framed by Him and not by our own heart. All this stuff going on inside me, and I look at that image and it's like, you don't know what a person really thinks about themselves. But we're all sitting here in this room and we're enjoying food, fellowship, and all of that. But you don't really know what a person thinks about themselves when they look in the mirror or deny looking at the mirror, because they don't want to see themselves, because they're tired of themselves, because themselves are not great, because they frame themselves in their own thinking, in their own thoughts, in their own ways, and only in their, and that's limited. It's limited. It's so limited. It's depressing. It's depressing. Before you see the next day, he says, you can know what the next day is supposed to look like. Before you see it, you can know what it's supposed to look like. Then you can reach, now listen, then you can reach back and decree into your image what tomorrow should look like. And tomorrow will be the framing of the image that will grow into your future,
Yes.
which was
Come on.
declared on yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Deep.
yeah.
No more delay.
So I'm supposed to stand in my now right here. And I look in that mirror and I see this image and I begin to declare, you are great.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
tomorrows are going to be nothing short of greatness.
Amen.
Your tomorrows are going to be filled with the Spirit of God. Your
Yes.
tomorrows are going to be limitless. Your tomorrows, if I begin to declare that, then I reach back, he says, and decree to that image what I'm saying, then my tomorrows become framed by my words.
Right.
My tomorrows become framed by my words.
Right?
Yes.
So
Not
true.
by my own thoughts and my own ways, but I begin to put
Yes.
new things into this picture and I frame something else so that the outcome is something else.
Amen.
I bind every spirit of resistance
Yeah.
because God was trying to get something to you and it's like pushing. It's
Yeah.
pushing
Yeah.
into you so that you get rid of something so that you can get what he has for you.
Amen.
He says, decree your tomorrow while you stand in your today, viewing the image.
Yes.
Stop agreeing with the image that you see.
Amen.
Yes.
Stop agreeing with it.
Mhm.
I don't care what you're thinking of yourself. Forget that and move towards what he thinks of you. And if you don't know what he thinks of you, start saying something positive. Like, my tomorrows are going to be, so that you frame your world based on that because somebody else is going to say something about you and they're trying to frame you. They're trying to frame you.
Break that.
Decree your tomorrow while you stand in your today, viewing an image. Decree well and frame the image in the future. Or decree from self-will or wrong outer influence, and the framing will hinder the image. How many times, parents can say something to children like we have, and if you say words, and Bible says words of death and life is in the power of the tongue, that is framing a person's life. When you speak life or death to a person, you begin to frame their life. That's understanding. So then we begin to speak wrong words or good words to ourselves even, let alone on the outside. But when it comes from the outside, when people feel like they can say anything to you, any kind of way, and you just accept it, that becomes a frame. Because man's words, remember, are limiting. They will limit your life. They will keep you from what he says. I know all about you and I want to tell you all about you. And you're saying, but I'm this. And he's saying, but get rid of those words because I have a new frame for your picture. I got a new frame for the image. I got something new instead of what you've been experiencing. I want to show you something new. So you have to get rid of those words. Wash the frame.
Right.
So you can have another frame around your life.
Good word. Good word.
Philippians 3:14 says, press toward the mark of the high calling, which is in Christ Jesus. So my last part is this. We're going to have a little discussion. Press in, he says, and desire the place which is higher. Press in and desire the place which is higher. Is the presence of the Lord important? Yes. Why? Because you want to hear him whisper to you.
Yeah.
Is the presence of the Lord important besides just being in church? Yes, because you want to hear him whisper to you. So it's important that we learn how to get into the presence of the Lord in church so we know how to do it when we're not in church. We need to be in the presence of the Lord all the time because he's whispering. He's trying to tell us something. Something. It isn't just, if you're only going to talk and let him talk to you on a Sunday, then you're missing out. And so your frame around your life is very limited because you're only hearing from him once and maybe twice and maybe twice. So he's saying press in. Like, don't be denied. Don't be denied of higher understanding about who you are and who you are supposed to be. This is the spirit of understanding, which is calling you higher. You must press toward the higher calling of spiritual understanding from the spirit of understanding. Contrary to this mark is the spirit of understanding that is connected to self-will and to the flesh. Remember, we have the flesh and the spirit warring against, trying to make me understand according to the flesh, trying to make me understand, though, according to the spirit. I am comes to give you a future more abundantly. What does he say? I come to give you life, and that more abundantly. And we hear that scripture, but we don't see how it works in our life. We hear it, but we don't, what is this abundance that you're talking about? You know, I want that. How do I get that?
Right.
Because he says, I come to frame your life. But not just do that, it's limitless.
Well.
His framing, his stuff is limitless. Says, I will give it to you more abundantly.
Yes. Jesus. Thank you, Lord.
He says, I am the spirit of understanding. I am the spirit of understanding, framing your image with unlimited potential for greatness and superiority over the flesh and the things of this world. I am not limited by man, for man tries to limit me. But I am greater than your limitation and will cause the future to become the outcome of your life. Your future can serve your present, your now, by hitting the mark for higher understanding. That's why we press toward the mark. We don't press toward our own self-will. We don't press to do things the way that we want to do stuff. When we do that, we have just, that picture right there, that thing will never come out of that frame. That's the way man's understanding is. You know, sometimes we call it traditionalism, sometimes we call it religion. It's anything that limits, it puts a lid on your life and says, this far, no more, halfway up the mountain, that's far enough, get satisfied, you're not getting any further. God's not like that. He's not trying to give it. He's trying to give us life and then more. We'll give you life and then more. What could be more than life? I already got life. What could be more than life? But to have it where it's abundant, where it's flourishing, where it is way bigger than just everybody else that has life. Life is like just the standard. And he's like saying, let me go, I can take you above the standard. I can give you that and much more abundant. The last part is we hitting the mark for higher understanding from the spirit instead of the other, which is born out of the earth and not for heaven. I am the spirit of understanding. I am the spirit of understanding. And I thought to myself, well, do you want me to talk about the spirit of understanding and wisdom? Because they seem to be interlocked together. And they are, you know, because you become wiser based on your understanding of life, your understanding. You become wiser. But no, we ain't gonna talk about wisdom. Because we just need to figure out how to understand. We just need to figure out what is he trying to get to us so I have a better understanding about who I am, not who you say I am, but who he says I am. So I can know fully 100 what's going on with me and where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to have in my tomorrow. Not based on what I see, but based on what he says. And I then agree with it with my mouth and frame my world, frame my life for a better tomorrow. Okay, so we don't want you to leave out of here and not know what he's talking about. So let's discuss it a little bit. Thoughts? Judge the word.